Alrighty, it's time to configure now, but let's talk about the configurations first. All right, so here's the syntax for static NAT. For all the NATs, we still need to go into the interfaces, the private interface and put IPNAT inside, the public interface and put IPNAT outside. We need to tell the interfaces, hey, you're the private side, you're the public side, using these two commands right here. If you do it backwards, it's not going to work. All right. And then when you configure static NAT, you're going to go IPNAT inside source static, the private address, which is your PC, to a public address. Now imagine doing that 5,000 times. That is ridiculous. Not so much it's going to burn a hole in your pocket, but it's ridiculous. All right. So that's static NAT. Not feasible and extremely tedious. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Then we got dynamic NAT. Less tedious, same thing. We do the same thing for the interfaces, right? One's inside, one's outside. But now we create a pool, IPNAT pool LAS. And we have a public range of IP addresses with the mask that it's using. And then we create an access list, standard access list, to permit that particular network that you want to allow to use the NAT. And then this third line right here is what puts these two lines together. Hey, IPNAT inside. The source list is 20, meaning the access list, and the pool is LAS. All right, so as people go through, right, they're trying to get out to the internet, they'll look at this and say, oh, I'm getting this IP address. So they'll start being assigned public IP addresses automatically. So even though you're creating a pool, it's less tedious, but you still need 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 IP addresses, even 100. I mean, it's ridiculous. All right, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But this is dynamic NAT. Pitfalls, if asked about dynamic NAT. Make sure you have enough addresses for the amount of people that you're going to give NAT to. All right. Make sure when you're creating this that you allow the amount of people that you want to go through using the correct wildcard mask. All right, so things like that. And it's case sensitive. Case sensitive. So if LAS is in lowercase, down here it better be in lowercase. And make sure it's pointing to the correct access list. These are things to look at. Now, the one that we're going to do right now is NAT overload or PAT. Same thing for the interface, inside, outside. And then we create a pool, but we create a pool. And I should have changed this, but that's okay. We're going to do it in the lab anyway. It's really a pool of one address. One address. All right? All we need is one. All right? And then we put the net mask. And then we do the same thing. The access list to permit the network. And then IPNAT inside source list 20, pool LAS, and a magical word called overload. And we're going to talk about that as we do it. We're going to talk about that as we do it now in the lab. So we have our lab. Here it is right here. Let's move it over here so you can see it. I may be in the way. I'm always in the way. Okay. So we have these three PCs. All the IPs are configured already. So is the server. You got green lights going all the way across. Now, really in the packet tracer, we're connected to the router. So we can just ping across. It's going to work because the routing table shows it. But we're going to configure NAT anyway. All right. So we're going to go inside here, which is our NAT router. Right. We got the 192.168.100 network. And we have the 1.1.1.1, and they're both using CIDR 24. So just to make it easy, all right? So let's put that right there. Well, let's do this. Boom, boom. Let's move the lab over here. And let's give me room. All right. So we're in the NAT router. We're going to enable config T. Now we're going to go to the F00. Which is your internal, right? So right here, the F00 is your internal network. So that's what we're going to go. In F0/0, IPNAT inside. All right, that tells it, hey, this is the private side. The F01 is a public side. So int F0/1, IPNAT outside. Okay, so we did the first criteria that we had to do. We're telling you, hey, this is private, this is public. Don't get it confused or it won't work. So let's exit out of there. So now we're going to create the pool of addresses. The pool of addresses. And we're going to use actually the IP address that's sitting right here, because it's the only one that's active, the only one we can use, which is 1.1.1.254. All right, so we're going to say IP NAT pool. Obviously, I'm going to call it LAS. All right, and then we put the range of IP addresses. So 1.1.1.254, 1.1.1.254. Then we put net mask, and then the net mask that we're using. Let me move this a little bit further just so you can see the net mask. 255.255.255.0. Okay, so, and I'm going to hit enter, bring it up here. I'm going to get out of your way. All right, so IP NAT pool is called LAS. Here's a range of one IP address and then the net mask. You can also use an exit interface if you wanted to, but your book tells you, and for the majority part, for testing purposes, they like to use the net mask. All right, so now we got the net mask. Now we're going to create the access list. And this is the order that I like to do it in. Not necessarily you have to do it in this order, but I do. Okay, so I'm going to create a standard access list for that network. So I'm going to say access list 10 permit the 192.168.100.0 0.00255. Okay, so I'm going to permit that network. But you're saying, LAS, I'm not applying that access list anywhere. How's that going to work? Because NAT's going to listen for the interchain traffic. Here comes the third line that's important. Okay, IP NAT inside source list. What list? List 10. What pool? Pool LAS. Case sensitive. And then what's the magical word? Overload. If you do not put the word overload, it's going to be dynamic NAT. So this is a magical word that you need to make sure that if in your certification, a test, whatever it is, if it doesn't say overload, you're not running dynamic NAT. I mean, you're not running NAT overload. You're running dynamic NAT. And then only how many people? Even though you're allowing 250 something people, only one person is going to go through because there's only one public IP address. So be very careful. These are the things that you need to pay attention to. So that is how you configure dynamic NAT on the router. All right. And how do you know it's working? Well, I'll just show you now because it's pretty simple how to do that. All right. Well, first of all, it's got to go through the NAT router. So let's go here. All right. Let's bring the lab back over so you can see right there. Let's pick on PC1. Go to the desktop. And let's ping the server, which is 1.1.1.1. And remember, it's Ethernet, so we have that ARP. All right, so there you go. There's your replies. We'll do it again so we can get the 4 replies. And since it's a server, we'll go here. We'll go 1.1.1.1. And hey, we can get to a website. So we have full connectivity. It doesn't really matter because if you were to look at the routing table, you would see that they're directly connected. But you can simply do what I showed you when we're looking at the inside and outside. Show IP, NAT, translations. And when you get this, you know it's working. But notice, here, when we pinged, it's using the ICMP protocol, right? But when we went to the website, it's using TCP. Here, ping really, there's no port number, but you can see that TCP, because we're going to port 80, is using a source port number of 1025 and a destination port 80. Because the source port number is going to change per computer, okay? But anyway, that is how you configure the NAT routing protocol. Very simple to do, not a big deal, and this is how you can check to see if actually it is working. All right, with that said, that was quick, that was easy. I'll see you in the next one.